Well, good evening, brothers and sisters, siblings. It is now time for the moment of this whole hour of why we assembled and gathered in this wonderful, wonderful place. Would you all stand to your feet, clap your hands, and give a round of applause for our Congresswoman, Alma. Oh, we can do better than that. Come on, come on. Yes, yes, yes. It is my pleasure to be your mistress of ceremony for this evening, this afternoon, this day, wherever we are in the world. My name is Reverend Dr. Stephanie Moore Hand, and I have the privilege of standing before you as the mistress of ceremony. We welcome each and every one of you to this auspicious occasion, celebrating the importance of community engagement and community representation. We encourage all attendees to make the most of this evening by participating in discussions and networking. On your table, somebody hold up that card for us. On your table, there we go, yes, yes. It's not there for table adornment. It is there for you to write down any questions as you hear our Congresswoman speak this evening. So at the end of our time together, there will be a Q&A session. So we want to make sure all questions are written down so that you're able to ask our Congresswoman. And one thing about her, if we don't know already, she gonna tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Whether we like it or not, we can say ouch right now. Go ahead and say ouch. Mm-hmm. Housekeeping, the restrooms are located and they were down the hallway, so if nobody knows where those places are, now you do. Please silence your iPhones, Samsungs, come on over to the iWorld phones. And each attendee will find your card in your seat. The questions will be live discussions, and so we want to make sure that you are engaging. The whole purpose of our democracy, right, is that we elect people for the people, not for self-serving manners. So we already know, yes, 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 absolutely. And she is definitely a woman of valor and a woman who serves her people. Before we get into this, it is important and appropriate to just take a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives on American Airlines, which is stationed here. Their home base is at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. 67 lives were lost between American Airlines and the Black Hawk helicopter. So let us take a moment in reverence and silence. Amen. And so let us pray together. God of our weary years and God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far along the way, we've come before you with grateful hearts this evening, acknowledging that although at times we experience chaos and confusion, deception and division, we know that God, you are a great God from Zion. You are still on the throne, sovereign and mighty, and we tonight give you thanks for this gathering, for Congresswoman Adams as she shares the vision and the state of the district, and that we will experience in this place a mock ceremony, celebrating all the dedicated individuals who came before her, celebrating her as she and us uphold democracy, not just for some, but for all. Oh God, we ask your guidance in building a brighter future for our communities. And Lord, yes, this nation. We have tremendous gratitude for how you woke us up this morning and started us on our way. We ask for your wisdom and guidance and strength as we reflect on this progressive District 12, our city, our state, and our nation. Help us to keep the vision clear for the road ahead. Lord, let this evening be a testimony for your divine grace and your divine power, inspiring our collaboration, our unity, and our action. May your presence be filled in our hearts, reminding us that you, Lord, and you alone, there is nothing too hard for you. Your word is true. All things are possible through the one who strengthens us. And if God be for us, who can be against us? So bless our leaders and our community leaders and all of those who have assembled in this place to do mercy, to love justice, and to walk humbly with you, oh God. Do it again, God. Do it again. It is in the matchless name of our Creator we pray. Amen. Amen. And so at this moment, we will present the presentation of colors and the Pledge of Allegiance. So in your space and place, please stand, and we welcome the West Charlotte High School Army, ROTC, for the presentation of colors and join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. They are led by Lieutenant Colonel Darrell A. Owens, West Charlotte High School Army, JROTC, and the participants are Cadet Command Sergeant Major Hernandez, Cadet Second Lieutenant Pena, Cadet Second Lieutenant Miller, and Cadet Second Lieutenant Corolno.
Present. Arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Post. Forward. March.
You may be seated. Let's give a hand clap of gratitude for our young leaders here in Charlotte, one of the greatest schools. All schools are great in Mecklenburg County. At this moment, we're going to have brief remarks. It is my pleasure to welcome our public servants and those who advocate for our city. Charlotte City Council Mayor Pro Tem Dante Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dante Anderson, and I have the pleasure of serving as Charlotte City Council representative for District 1, as well as the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Charlotte. And it is my absolute honor to be here tonight for this critical State of the District address. Before I begin, I have some colleagues that are in the room. I see at least one. There might be others. But if I have any other Charlotte City Council members here, please stand and be recognized. There we go. Ms. Mayfield at large and Ms. Brown representing District 3. Before I share some updates from the council, I just want to emphasize the significance of why we're all gathered here this evening. Congresswoman Adams' State of the District address is a vital opportunity for us as constituents to hear directly about the progress and challenges facing our community. It's a chance for us to understand how federal legislation interacts locally and support our goals locally. And as we listen to Congresswoman's update, I encourage everyone to consider how we can work together at the federal, state, and local levels to build a stronger, more equitable Charlotte. I am excited to share some recent progress around how the Congresswoman has advocated for the City of Charlotte and Charlotte City Council. Last year, Council was awarded a $30 million grant for federal, yes, please clap for that. That grant was from the Federal Transit Administration. It was the largest such grant in the history of our city. We've never received a grant of that magnitude. So it really and truly is a size that we need to celebrate. With our matching grants, we were able to invest locally in a total of $57 million into our transit system. This funding will allow us to replace 31 of our oldest diesel buses with new electric vehicles. Sustainable growth. I see Miss Watlington there as well. I don't know if you stood up, but Miss Watlington is there as well. And that is the direction of how we can invest in installing green infrastructure and advancing our workforce development programs by investing in green and leaning into green and having our Congresswoman partner with us to help advance our goals locally. We're also actively working to improve accessibility and ADA compliance across our public transportation network. We recognize that some of our bus stops are far too apart and they're not fully accessible, as many of you probably know, and we're committed to addressing these issues to better serve all members of our community. So more to come on that. But as a council, we continue to focus on creating policies that benefit all Charlotteans, carefully reviewing and approving our city budget to ensure responsible stewardship for public resources. And I'll just share that we just came back from a 2.5-day retreat for Charlotte City Council, where we decided as a city to go and invest in Western Carolina and spend 2.5 days focusing on ensuring that we're focused on the right priorities, that we have the right initiatives to undergird those priorities, and to just have a discussion of how we can act and function as a better council to do even more. Thank you, Ms. Brown. To do even more than we accomplished in 2024. So it was a very intense 2.5 days, and the mayor of Asheville, Asheville City Council members were very happy that we decided to lean into Asheville and help to keep Asheville strong and to help invest in Western Carolina. So I want to just thank Congresswoman Adams for her tireless advocacy for our district at the federal level. If you are in the community and if you are an advocate, and many of you are, I see your faces, I see them all the time, then you know that you see her face everywhere. She's everywhere. She's in the community, she's in DC. I wonder how she does it all. But she's committed fully to her district, to our district, to our community, and I want to thank her for always leaning into us. I look forward to hearing for the state of the district address and continuing our collaborative work, and the operative word is collaborative, to address the challenges and opportunities of our community. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's listen, let's learn, and let's recommit to working together for the betterment of Charlotte and the entire district that our Congresswoman serves. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for your leadership and all officials that have been acknowledged at this point. We have a special commendation from Governor Stein by Renee Castellanos. And after he speaks, we're going to go right into the introduction of the woman of the hour in important information in which we are going to learn and know what she's doing in our district. And then we'll go right into the mock swearing and ceremony with the Honorable Judge Samantha Mobley. Now, we're going to have some roller skates, y'all, because at the end of the day, we want to hear from our Congresswoman. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so everybody pay attention, move swiftly. Where's my friend? Renee, come on down. Show some love for him.
Good evening. My name is Renee Castellanos. I have the distinct pleasure of serving as a regional outreach advisor for the governor. I'm so lucky for this role. This is probably exactly 1 month since I started it, and before I've had the pleasure of knowing Congresswoman Adams in a multiple different different roles that I've had in the past as well, both on the campaign and across Congress. It's no surprise that in Raleigh we have had the pleasure of knowing you for many years. Your fervor for public service is well known to the governor, to past governors, to people in the General Assembly, and of course throughout Charlotte. And with that, I would love to read you a letter that the governor has prepared for you. Dear Representative Adams, as you prepare for your State of the District address, I offer my sincere congratulations on your re-election and the beginning of your 6th term of office. North Carolina is fortunate that you are representing us in Washington, D.C., and I know that you will continue to work tirelessly to improve the lives of the people of the 12th District. I certainly value your leadership and friendship. As governor, I look forward to working with you to champion your 4 H's: housing, healthcare, hunger, and higher education. A home is more than just a roof over your head. It's also a community anchor and a way to build generational wealth. We must increase home ownership opportunities and expand housing options of all types across the state so that in our lives, our homes are a source of stability, not stress. We must also address our healthcare system by continuing to make healthcare more affordable, insurance more accessible, and medical debt less burdensome. In addition, education is the door to a world of opportunity, and we must ensure all students can access it. When our students are not suffering from chronic hunger, they learn and behave better, and they are more likely to show up to school and retain what they are learning. An investment in nutrition is an investment in our future, and we must also ensure that all of our students can access world-class higher education system while providing meaningful career options for students who do not pursue a college education. I'm grateful for your dedicated service to our state over your career and look forward to partnering with you on the work of building a safer, stronger North Carolina. Thank you, Congressman Adams.
So, Congresswoman said we're going to change it around a little bit. We're going to do the swearing in first and then the introductory. All right, so let's shift a bit.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I state your name.
I, Alma Adams,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
on which I am about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Tonight, it is my privilege to introduce Congresswoman Alma S. Adams, PhD, a trailblazing leader and tireless advocate for North Carolina's 12th Congressional District. Dr. Adams made history as the 100th woman sworn into the 113th Congress and continues to shape history, serving as a ranking member on the House Subcommittee for Education and the Workforce and the House Subcommittee on Agriculture. She has been a steadfast advocate for HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, securing landmark funding in the amount of $255 million through the Future Act, as well as an additional $50 million research and development grant to further their impact. A proud double graduate of North Carolina A&T University and the Ohio State University, Dr. Adams spent 40 years teaching art at Bennett College and co-founded the African American Atelier, which celebrates its 33rd year this year, which exemplifies her lifelong dedication to education, the arts, and uplifting students. Beyond her legislative accomplishments, Dr. Adams has been a beacon of inspiration for women and minority communities. Her advocacy spans healthcare, housing, higher education, and hunger, constantly amplifying the voices that are too often silenced. She embodies the spirit of resilience and equity, serving as a fierce champion for justice and inclusion. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Alma Adams, a visionary leader whose purpose and passion continue to enrich the lives of all she serves.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Yara, for that kind and gracious introduction. You're due for a raise. Good evening and welcome to our annual State of the District Address. I am Congresswoman Alma Adams, your Congresswoman. I do represent North Carolina, Mecklenburg County, and the city of Charlotte in the 119th Congress. I do want to thank Mayor Pro Tem for her comments. I want to thank my daughter for holding her grandmother's Bible as I was sworn in, and Judge Samantha, thank you so very much. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I'm a recent great-grandmother. And I am a lifelong educator. And I'm delighted to be at the Wilkinson Goodwill Opportunity Campus. I want to thank Goodwill for hosting us, as well as all of the participants in tonight's program for their work and for planning and participating this evening. And especially I want to thank our Mistress of Ceremony, my soror, Reverend Dr. Hand, as well. But also joining me this evening are my staff from Washington, D.C., my staff based here in the district who will be introduced later. I do want to bring you greetings on behalf of Speaker Mike Johnson, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and the record-breaking 62 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, known as the conscience of the Congress. I do want to recognize those of you who've been to this event before. I want to welcome you back. But I hope that you are eager to hear some updates that I'm going to be sharing since I last hosted the State of the District Address. And to all of the new faces, whether you are a longtime constituent who's new to this event or you're a new constituent, due to the new shape of the district, I welcome you, and I hope that we have a chance to work together over the next 2 years. All of the elected leaders in the House and those who've been appointed to serve, or those who are just serving anyway, thank you for your service. It is indeed the rent we pay for living on this earth. Well, I'm not going to waste any time getting to it, but first of all, let me just echo what Dr. Hand has said in terms of the tragedy that we have experienced, and we are continuing to pray for those families. You know, or may not know, that I fly in and out of Charlotte Douglas Airport every week, and some of the crew I have had an opportunity to fly with. So we're going to continue to keep those families in our prayers. So I'm not going to waste any time getting to it. This week, we have already seen immense challenges coming from the White House. On Monday evening, we got word of a shocking memo to the Office of Management and Budget that requested all federal funding be paused on Tuesday evening, and people are still waiting, and we'll see what happens when Tuesday come again. But it was a flurry of chaos and confusion. I had constituents and organizations calling me and my office, afraid that they were going to lose access to crucial grants. North Carolinians were locked out of their Medicaid portals, and they could not access their health insurance on Tuesday. Well, that's over 2.5 million people. A mom called my office, and she was so afraid that she wouldn't be able to access her children's Medicaid, and wondering if they would be able to eat their free lunch at school the next day. A group in Charlotte that provides renovations for low-income families called, worried that they won't get additional federal grants to assist the neighborhoods that they work in. A constituent and Meals on Wheels employee called in to share that they would lose half of their service capacity if this pause wasn't lifted by Friday. Now, that's tomorrow. That means that our elders will go without food. Over 40,000 seniors get meals through this program in our state. A constituent whose son in Charlotte Mecklenburg School System's Bright Beginnings program called in to say that her son's learning might be set back if the program was forced to close. A community-based organization serving unhoused youth in Charlotte is concerned that they will no longer be able to provide shelter if the freeze doesn't end. Well, this is just only a handful of the stories that we've heard. These are people behind these numbers. And thankfully, a federal judge in Washington stopped this pause from going into effect Tuesday evening. And yesterday, the deeply troubling memo that started all of this had been rescinded. And even so, the president has said that he will continue to target government funding, and I promise to continue working with you to oppose it and to know what its full ramifications will be. I want to be clear that this has been called a pause in funding, but what these really are cuts. Cuts to programs that do great things for people here at home. And these cuts are not only meant to create confusion like what we're facing, but also to push an agenda that hurts working families. This is the president legislating from the White House, and that's against the Constitution. Let me say that again. That is against the Constitution. And so, what we've seen so far this week is just the latest in what has been a challenging last few months for North Carolina, particularly for our neighbors in the West. Hurricane Helene ravaged communities with unprecedented flooding and winds, and I'm grateful to everyone who has participated in that recovery process, which is still ongoing. Congress in general has supported the recovery too, although in my opinion we waited a little bit too long to do so. In Washington, I have been fighting to ensure that recovery means resilience. And future instances of this kind of tragedy are not so destructive and do not catch us by surprise. With climate change, we know that we can expect more storms like Helene, but we also know that we can be prepared for them. And that's why I supported the bill, the American Relief Act, that made $110 billion in disaster assistance available for relief efforts here in North Carolina and across the Southeast. I also supported the Agricultural Relief and Farm Bill extension included in that bill, which helped our struggling farmers get by. It gave us some certainty in terms of the next 12 months of food and farm policy, because our farmers, they keep us fed, isn't that right? They keep us fed. And so the American Relief Act also kept the government open by extending last year's budget. And in Congress, we call this a continuing resolution. And it gives us a little more time to figure out next year's budget. Now, that CR, as we refer to it, is only good through March 14th. And you do the math and you'll see we're very close to March 14th, maybe close to at least another attempted shutdown. Don't know, but March 14th is the deadline for that CR. I voted yes on it, but it by no means was a perfect bill. We know for a fact that it could have been much better, chock full of priorities that would have served working people in our district. And what happened was at the 11th hour, House leadership bypassed weeks of negotiations, and they dropped several provisions that were included in the initial versions of the bill. $500 million for child care, gone. Funding for the health of 9/11 survivors and first responders, gone. Passage of a bipartisan updated Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act that would bring more resources for employment, for education and training to employers and job seekers in Charlotte, gone. But wait, there's more. $190 million in funding and 3 bills that would address child cancer research, development, and treatment. We're talking about cancer, child cancer here, gone. Funding for breast and cervical cancer screening, gone. Reforming the activities of pharmacy benefit managers, which would have cut the cost of prescription drugs for Charlotte families, also gone. And some of you may be familiar with the rise in food stamps being stolen by criminals. Hackers and other thieves have stolen millions of dollars from SNAP recipients by fraudulently retrieving their EBT card information. The USDA used to be able to refund stolen dollars to families so that they could still eat. And that meant that the federal government was able to put $2.7 million back in the pockets of North Carolina families between 2022 and 2024. And we were poised to protect that program, which expired in December. But House leadership scrapped that program before we left for the Christmas holidays. And so in the weeks since, we've already seen news coverage of families who had hundreds of dollars of benefits stolen with no hope of getting them back. And so the point here is that when Congress acts in a partisan way, everybody suffers. And with the new makeup of the House, the Senate, and the White House, there's probably going to be more of it, which is why it will be important for me to continue to work in a bipartisan manner to see through that your priorities are accounted for, and to hold the line on important programs and policies that will be on the chopping block. I do call myself a stakeholder representative, and that's because I represent your needs and agendas in Congress, and I mean it. And the record will show it. Now, last Congress, as part of my work on maternal health, and specifically the Black maternal health crisis, I passed the Stillbirth Prevention Act, which increases funding to protect moms and their babies before, during, and after birth. Now, this life-saving bill was signed into law by President Biden, and I thank him for that. And last year, North Carolina received $18.4 million for maternal and child health through the program that bill expands. And so we're saving lives here. The Social Security Fairness Act, which I co-sponsored, will fix issues with Social Security that limited benefit amounts for our teachers, firefighters, nurses, postal carriers, and other public workers in a way that means more money in your pocket. That bill was also signed into law. And so I'm going to continue to fight tooth and nail for Social Security. The HBCU MSI Research and Development Infrastructure Grant Program, based on my leadership in the Congressional Bipartisan HBCU Caucus, has distributed over $100 million in the past 2 years to historically black colleges and universities that need to update their research facilities to stay competitive in the 21st century. Grants for schools in Republican and Democrat districts alike show us that it's not just about the dollars, but the sense too. That's the common sense. To know what we need and when to put money towards bipartisan priorities like our schools, we get real results, including in North Carolina. We are HBCU strong because we have 11 HBCUs in North Carolina. And even when a tough political climate proves challenging to the priorities that we have, there's still a lot that I do to move our district forward in my office, on the committees that I sit, in the Congress, and with the administration. And so I'm proud to share that last year alone, we secured over $100 million in federal funding for the 12th district through grants largely stemming from legislation that I voted for in the House, including the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. Just this month, we also learned that Charlotte will be receiving a $25 million grant from the Department of Transportation. I think our pro tem mentioned it was a little bit more than that. That's good. To improve street, traffic safety, and transit across the city. Now, these are the kinds of investments that I'm going to continue to fight for. And these are the kinds of opportunities that our office gets to the word out to each of you. And these are the applications that I've written letters of support for, so that our community can make the most of the resources made available by the federal government. Community project funding, people are still asking about that now. That's another opportunity that I actively participate in to ensure that our community organizations can grow and thrive with congressionally directed spending. And so this makes sure that those who are closest to the problems in the community have the biggest impact in addressing them. And some of the organizations that you represent have been recipients of many of these grants. Now, Congress brought this resource back about 3 years ago, and so we're waiting to learn what this year's process for community project funding will look like. So stay tuned for that. And I'm proud to share that since 2022, we have secured over $46 million for community projects. Last year, in 2024, we secured $14 million. And in 2025, the most recent drafts of the budget have suggested that $13.6 million in new funding will be allocated to our district for important social services and other project work. But a lot of that, I'm going to just be real honest, will depend on this new Congress. We haven't gotten our budgets yet, haven't gotten budgets for our office yet. But hopefully we'll be able to get more information by next week. But the dollars have gone toward the essential labor of organizations like Nourish Up, who have used the money to build their state-of-the-art hunger hub that we cut the ribbon on last year. Nourish Up's increased capacity means that it will be able to serve food-insecure families well into the future, which will be needed more than ever before. And the C.W. Williams Community Health Center what was able to reopen after renovations it completed thanks to a $1.2 million plus federal grant. And my office helped to secure $2 million more for a community care family medicine clinic in the West Boulevard corridor. I had the pleasure of visiting in person last year these facilities, and I can't speak more highly of the work that they're doing across the county in terms of community health. So bravo to them. Now, since the pandemic, we have seen an uptick in violence against our hospital workers. And as the former chair of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee in Congress, I was pleased to support Charlotte and Atrium Health to secure a community funding grant for almost $1 million to address hospital-based violence. We see the preventive positive impacts of the hospital-based violence intervention program being rolled out in real time. And the Umbrella Center, which supports survivors of domestic violence, an issue personal to me. I have been a victim of domestic violence. And we were able to receive $2.5 million for providing wraparound services to women and children in need. Safety, justice, and healing. That is their motto. So this is money well earned and money well spent. And that's just a sample of the many millions of dollars in community projects and grant funding that have flowed into the district because of my office's collaborative efforts. And you heard the Mayor Pro Tem talked about collaboration, collaborative efforts with individuals and organizations that we are lucky to call our neighbors. And now we've done a lot together over the past decade, but I'm not finished yet. I want to be clear that the state of our district is strong, and together we will continue our work to solve the urgent issues that our city and our state are grappling with. I've worked together with each of you before. I know many of you here, and you're probably familiar with my 4 H's, and that have always sort of guided my time in public service. My H of health and hunger, housing, and higher education. These essential policy areas will continue to guide my work in the 119th Congress as I continue the fight to make the more affordable work for the working people of North Carolina's 12th District. Take housing. Last year, I introduced the American Neighborhoods Protection Act with Charlotte's very own Attorney General Jeff Jackson. He was in the House with me then. But we know that the rent is just too damn high, and owning a home remains out of reach for so many families who want to put down roots and start a family and stay in Charlotte. You know, our mayor has talked about if you work in Charlotte, you should be able to live in Charlotte. Now, especially as Charlotte continues to be an epicenter for growth, I plan to reintroduce this bill, although sadly without former Representative Jackson, to ensure that large companies that buy up lots of homes cannot put price families out of neighborhoods. And that's what they're doing. And this year, with President Trump's corporate tax cuts from 2017 set to expire, that's the perfect time to be working on this issue. Now, I'm going to just deviate just a little bit and say, yeah, those taxes are going to expire. And maybe that's why they're trying to find this money and put this burden on the backs of poor people. And we're not going to have that. But we need affordable housing. Now, hunger, as ever, is at the top of my mind. And so we saw a lot during COVID. We saw people pulling up with cars, loading their cars with food. But I can tell you, you don't see the lines anymore. People are still hungry. People still need to eat. Now, I already mentioned SNAP theft. But we can't talk about SNAP without discussing the fact that what our families rely on to buy food is not nearly enough. Because SNAP, on average, gives folks, now hear me, $2 per meal per day. That's $6 a day, and that can't even cover That won't even cover a cup of coffee. Now where I buy my coffee anyway. And if you're familiar with Project 2025, the agenda to cut, SNAP is under threat, not on my watch. I'm going to reintroduce the Closing the Meal Gap Act, which increases the amount of SNAP benefits that participants will get so that they provide much needed support and relief in the grocery aisle. And so I do lose sleep knowing that children go to bed hungry in Charlotte. 45,000 children in Mecklenburg. Over 130,000 people in total experience food insecurity. But it doesn't have to be this way. And my bill is the plan in Congress to change it. And after over 2 years of negotiations, we still don't have a farm bill. But it's likely that we'll get one this year. And I'm going to fight to make sure that this farm bill does not include cuts to the most efficient, most effective anti-poverty program in the history of this country, SNAP. You know, I have my own reference when during COVID we had PPP. Well, I have a new definition for that, punishing poor people. We got to stop doing that because we need to protect and expand SNAP because you can't be healthy if you're hungry. Now, higher education is also hugely important to me as a former professor. I didn't spend all those years getting a PhD to tell you that. But in fact, I'm pleased to announce that at this Congress, I will be serving as the new ranking member of the Higher Education and Workforce Development Subcommittee. And I know I've got my work cut out for me, but it's hard to be successful in college or graduate school without a well-resourced K through 12 experience. And that's why I plan on reintroducing the Educators for America Act. The Educators Act with direct resources to recruiting and retaining, preparing teachers to address what's become a crisis in the teaching profession. Because when teachers suffer, our students suffer. But when teachers succeed, students succeed. And so I'm going to continue to fight for those among us who bear the burden of student debt, because like everything else, student debt is too damn high. And so, as President Biden did, with legislation that I helped introduce that addresses the student debt crisis head on. I'm going to continue to fight for our HBCUs, all 106 across this country. HBCUs like Johnson C. Smith University in our district, go Golden Bulls, and Livingstone College right next door, go Blue Bears, which are the backbone of our communities and generate billions of dollars in the economy. And because I've often said, paraphrasing W.E.B. Du Bois, that the right to learn is the most fundamental, and indeed it is. And last but certainly not least, health. I lead the Black Maternal Health Caucus in Congress, and we are gearing up to once more introduce Momnibus. It's a series of bills that do the hard but necessary work of addressing what some may call, or some may know as the Black maternal health crisis, and there is a crisis. But some of us, we do it because of personal experience or the experiences of our loved ones who have had complications related to birth or tragedies within the healthcare system. This crisis is preventable, and preventing some 80% of America's maternal deaths is what this legislation is designed to do, because Black women are dying 3 and 4 times the rate of white women just giving birth. The Black Maternal Health Momnibus would put historic investments toward addressing every driver of maternal mortality, morbidity, and disparity. I know they don't like that word anymore. Disparity in the U.S., building on the over $200 million in funding that I have helped secure through the annual appropriation process. We need the Momnibus now, just like we needed it yesterday. And I'm going to be working tirelessly this Congress to get it across the finish line. So take it from me, the great-grandmother in the room. Now, while I am hopeful that I'll still be able to make headway on these issues and more, I'm not naive. A new president, a single party rule in the legislative branch mean that there are some serious challenges ahead. And as I've already shared, those challenges have already started. Funding cuts, changes to the public workforce, and new executive orders by the day. But these are all meant to distract us from doing the people's work. But Congress does the legislating in Washington, D.C. Laws are not made at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The good news, Charlotte, thank God, is that executive orders are not law. Now, let me just tell you something, Charlotte. We've been here before, and we'll do what we need to do again. When they tried to suppress our votes, we organized. When they tried to underfund our schools, we fought back. And when they tried to silence our voices, we spoke louder. We will protect our children. We will protect Social Security and Medicare from budgetary cuts. We will also protect the historic investments of Congress in the things that we absolutely need, like climate adaptation, innovation, infrastructure, and new jobs from being clawed back. And I'm going to tell you that I will staunchly defend the successes of the previous administration that keep our air clean, that keep our workers safe, our families healthy, and when the majority attempts to roll back rules and regulations that we fought so hard to be implemented, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to speak up. You know me, I'm going to cut up. I have already raised questions about executive orders that threaten to undo the progress that we've made in addressing climate change and clean energy, which have brought so much to Charlotte already. And I'm going to protect our electoral process and the civil rights that my people have fought for so long that everybody benefits from. And I'm going to defend against attacks on our most vulnerable communities, like our immigrant communities who make Charlotte and this country great. I'm opposed to President Trump's ridiculous and unconstitutional attacks on immigrants, like his executive order stripping birthright citizenship, which is guaranteed in the Constitution. And I'm proud that my former colleague and now Attorney General Jeff Jackson is suing on North Carolina's behalf to get this executive order overturned. Let's hear it for Jeff Jackson. I'm also opposed to the threat of ICE entering our schools, our churches, and our hospitals, all sacred and healing places where people should not be living in fear of detention or deportation. This is an abuse of power by the administration, and I'm not going to stand for that. I have always supported comprehensive immigration reform, but what we're seeing happen with these directives and quotas is terrorizing our communities. We've been monitoring CMS's work to protect students who together represent 175 nationalities. In Charlotte, diversity is a good word. It's our strength. Our LGBTQ friends and family who have been targeted already this Congress just a few weeks ago. We're going to work to protect our children as well, who cannot vote yet, but who rely on a strong public education system, including the Department of Education feeding programs like the National School Lunch Program, child health specific programs, and medications, including vaccines that keep people alive. You know, we're not going to let the Department of Education get shut down. We're just not going to do that. Our black and brown communities who at all levels are being dehumanized by a resurgent racism from the interpersonal to the structural. So from being denied handshakes, like Vice President Harris was, by the husband of a new senator, to being denied housing as race-based discrimination and persist in the distribution of our basic needs. Attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, across the government, including a flurry of executive orders signed by President Trump. These things just can't stand. And folks on low or limited income need to stop being punished by our government. I'm going to continue to stand with those who, by no fault of their own, participate in critical programs like Medicaid and SNAP and WIC and Section 8, for example, and to those in Charlotte who have benefited from our federal government's fight to make prescription drugs cheaper. I'm going to keep fighting for that. Because President Trump signed an executive order rolling back those drug prices as well. And finally, I'm going to continue to work for policies and funding that protect workers of all backgrounds, who I express my deepest solidarity with as the labor movement builds momentum. And that includes members of our civil workforce living in Charlotte, whose commitment to public service and keeping our government functioning is being politicized. So as your stakeholder representative, what matters to you matters to me. And so before I conclude, and speaking of the labor movement, I was just reminded of a story that I remember it as this Congress and this new administration proceeds. I remember being in the State House, and I learned to introduce bills sometimes with seemingly attractive names that often did problematic things that did not live up to those titles. In North Carolina, for example, we know our state to be the right to work state. And that sounds like a good name. Everybody wants the right to work. Sounds nice, doesn't it? The right to have a job, maybe with a good salary, benefits, or high wage, 40 hours a week, a right rather than a privilege. And then the content of the right to work itself is a different story, because it peels back benefits, it lowers wages, it denies protections. It makes it harder for folks to improve their workplace by exercising their federally protected right to organize. I believe you should be able to do that. Or you may remember a bill that we called the Motorcycle Safety Bill that was changed at the last minute. I was in the House when that happened, to include a provision that restricted abortion access. And that bill passed. They ripped the original content out of the bill, and they put some, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. Everybody else was asleep, I guess. But I share these stories only because we're seeing a lot of this going on at the federal level. And so I urge you to do your research into what bills actually do, not just what they're named, especially when I vote no on them. I'm going to try to agree with you much of the time, but please understand that I'm going to read it all the way through. They may just give you the top line. For example, the majority of the House has already passed a few bills, this Congress, that claim to protect women, but in actuality, they do not. They attack LGBTQ people, they attack immigrants, and they attack the most vulnerable among us, all groups, which, by the way, include women. And I have voted no on them because they are dangerous. And meanwhile, they want to take away abortion and other forms of reproductive health. I don't think that's very protective of women, that's if you ask me. But in these rough waters and in this era of distraction, I urge all of us to stay focused. And part of that means that we must continue to communicate. We always want to hear from you about the legislation that I vote on. So please reach out to my office if you have any clarifying questions or concerns. As a matter of fact, I have some of my expert staffers here tonight. But if you live in the 12th District, my offices are always open to you. If you want to visit D.C., tour the Capitol, even if you want to go in the White House now, or you need help, I got rid of all the tickets. But if you need help with the federal agency, my staff can assist you. And also, be sure to sign up for our Adams Alerts to keep apprised of what I'm doing on Capitol Hill through my website, adams.house.gov. A very special thank you to my staff tonight, our collaborators for their hard work on putting this program together, to all of you who have joined us, to those who have joined us afar outside of this room, and to the staff here on campus for their assistance. And I thank you all so very much for being here. I thank you for allowing me to represent you in the U.S. House of Representatives. Your priorities are my priorities, and it is an honor, and it is a privilege to represent you in Congress. Good night. God bless. The Reverend Dr. Hand will acknowledge my staff now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. God bless.
I think we can do just a little better than that. Yep. Absolutely. As I was sitting there and listening very intently, it reminded me of this quote is, we got to stop waiting on Superman and Superwoman to show up to fix our problems. Because Superman and Superwoman siblings are right here in this room. Is there's enough energy in this room to get behind our Congresswoman to do the hard work. And we know the hard work is ahead of us. And so I want to acknowledge the dignitaries that are in the room. If you're a dignitary or an elected official, I'm going to ask you to stand up. Superman and Superwoman, stand up if you have not already. Stand up. Wait, yes, right? That's right. Come on. Absolutely. We need to rally behind our leaders. And so at this transitional point, we're going to do some question and answers. Okay. So I'm going to do that after this. Is that okay? You want me to do it before?
Well, let's do it now so people read their own idea. We got to do staff here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to pivot. We're going to pivot. That's what we do. That's what we do. We pivot. So Congresswoman Adams wants to, of course, acknowledge the engine behind her being able to do all the things that she does. And so, as I call your name, would you please stand, and we want everybody to clap for all of this work that's being done behind the scenes. I'll start with the district office. Sandra Brown, the Deputy Chief of Staff and District Director. And Sandra, step out. We can't see you. Step out. Come on, step out, Sandra. Yes. That sister texted me early in the morning. Aisha Pratt, Constituent Service Manager. Constituent Service Manager. There she is. There she is. They're so shy. They're so shy. Yara, okay, I get this. I'm sorry. Yara Albiyari. Did I get it? Did I get it? All right. District Liaison, Lawrence Bryson, District Liaison. Ms. Jamerson, District Liaison. Carson Kuhn, District Liaison. Praise Taylor, District Staff Assistant. Jenna Roman, Administrative Assistant. From the D.C. office. Y'all ready? All right, let's get up. Adrian Kristen, Chief of Staff. Austin Bryansky, Legislative Director. Caroline Drury, Senior Policy Advisor. Ruben CEO, Legislative Assistant. So I'm going to ask all of y'all to stand up, wave your hand for where you are. Let's give them a round of applause for all that they do for Congresswoman Adams as well as this great district of ours. So now we're going to shift to the Q&A time. Can y'all show some love for this brother coming up?
Does this come out?
Yes, it does.
Hi, everyone. I'm Austin. I'm Congresswoman Adams' Legislative Director. And Congresswoman, I don't know if you wanted to take a seat and we can do this Hoda and Kathy style. And then, Caroline and Ruben, you guys just want to sit here. So thank you so much for coming out tonight, and thank you for submitting your questions, which we have been collecting. And if you don't hear yours, that doesn't mean it wasn't a great question. It just means that we're going to have to continue the conversation a little bit. And I do want to check for time, too. So someone give me a wave when we have a minute left. But we are just going to go through a few of these questions from the audience. And I wanted to start off with one that I think is on a lot of folks' mind that we got. And it is, what advice do you have for the immigrant community who is on edge with the recent actions coming from the White House? This isn't your first rodeo, right?
Well, first of all, thank you for your question. And let me just say to the immigrant community that if you are approached, it is required that there be some kind of paperwork. You can't just say, come with me. You can ask for to see a warrant or something that determines that not only are they official, but that the request that they are making is official. And I will tell you, when I first came to Charlotte 10, 12 years or so ago, they were actually going to school stops and picking up young people. And I think it's a terrible thing that we're back at that point. And I know that you are very fearful of what's going to happen. And we have a situation now with the president asking about birthright. If you have children that are born here, your children, if you're born in this country, you are a U.S. citizen.
That's right.
And so don't let anybody tell you anything different. But you need to ask for some proof. Don't just go with folks, but make them show you a warrant. I think that's what's going to be required. But I would just say be very careful about where you go and what you do and who you talk to.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Oh, so he wants to answer?
Yes.
I just want to.
Oh, go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruben. I just want to quickly add on to that. Want to say that schools and now hospitals and now churches are not safe, and so particularly with schools, students are not entitled, or teachers are not entitled to provide ICE information if those students aren't documented or not. Those students have rights. And so my advice would also keep an eye out as an ally to make sure that these students are going to school for that sole purpose of being educated, and that we're also seeing, undocumented people being arrested despite not committing a crime. And so my advice would be just to remain silent until you speak to a lawyer. And so that's very, very crucial. I just wanted to quickly add that.
Yeah, thank you. Ruben is my education LA. So he works with me on education policy and issues.
Thanks, Ruben, and thanks, Congresswoman. The next question is more of a how question, which I really appreciate. I think it is, I won't give too much of a preamble, but it is, how can I, as a constituent, better support the work of Congresswoman Adams?
Well, you can help me lobby. Let me just say that out of the 500, how many people in the Congress? 530? That's not right.
535.
535.
With the Senate.
So, listen, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me. But we need to make sure that we do that across the board, not just in the House, but in the Senate, because whatever becomes law also has to go to the Senate as well. When these issues come up, and these things are coming up so fast, so we're going to be sending information out as fast as we can get it, and we're going to need you to respond. Not just, I have people calling my office, and that's fine. But whether I represent you or someone else or people who don't represent you, if they're in the Congress and they are part of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, they do represent you, whether you voted for them or not. Everybody in the 12th District didn't vote for me, but I represent everybody in the 12th District, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whatever you call yourself. Doesn't matter. I am the representative and I am responsible for everyone.
Thank you so much. We have another policy question, and it is what would you become a champion of term limits for elected officials? Is that something that you?
I love that question. Well, let me tell you why I love that question. Because the folks who limit the terms are sitting out here right now. The people determine your limits. That's why we have elections. But let me just say that there's something about consistency and being in office, because it's all about seniority, okay? When I first, on the back of my pen is a number of my position in that total number. I'm now at 100.